Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, hello, my name is Susanna Paredes-Swap. I am the founder of an all-volunteer nonprofit based in California called Vanguard Culture that works to advance San Diego's creative industries. Vanguard Culture provides quality arts coverage of San Diego's arts and culture community. We produce unforgettable collaborative cultural events that bring together creatives from a variety of different industries, and we provide professional development opportunities that work to create arts jobs, bring diverse communities together, and inspire creative collaboration. This program is part of our Forum Professional Development Series, and we are very happy to acknowledge our wonderful program sponsor, Jack Lample, for helping us to produce free or low-cost programming in 2020 that provides resources and opportunities to help creatives make a living doing what they love. We could not do this without your support. So let's begin. Thank you for joining us to our first ever Story Circle. A Story Circle, as you can probably gather, is a small group of individuals that are sitting in a circle, sharing stories, usually from their own experience or imagination, and focusing on a common theme. This event is actually one of hundreds that are taking place all over the country in partnership with a program called the U.S. Department of Arts and Culture. They are a non-governmental nonprofit organization. Today, we are focusing on resilience, creativity, and hope as it relates to San Diego's arts and culture community. Today's Story Circle, The Future of the Arts, is featuring some of the region's most dynamic creative industry leaders, and we are very proud to share their stories with you today. To begin, before we get started, there are just a couple of setting suggestions that we have for our audience. First, to choose how you will experience this conversation, just click the small grid at the top right of your screen, and this will give you the opportunity to place your screen on speaker view. We recommend it. If you are on an iPad or on another mobile device, you may just be able to swipe your screen to the right until you see the view that you want. Secondly, to gain access to the chat box on your bottom right, just tap the three dots and click chat. This is a place where you can submit questions or comments to me directly for our speakers, although we may not have time to answer all of your questions. With that, I think it's time for us to begin. We hope this conversation brings us all much creative inspiration and hope for the future. Each guest in our series today has been asked to share a 2 to 5 minute story about something that they've experienced or encountered in the last few weeks that has either worked really well, inspired them, or given them hope for the future of the arts. Our first guest is a wonderful woman that I admire very much. Her name is Beth Accomando. She's film critic at KPBS and a blogger and podcast host for Cinema Junkie. Beth has been a film critic for more than 25 years and began at KPBS in 1987. Since 1997, she has been covering independent and international cinema, as well as pop culture for National Public Radio and Public Radio International's The World. She has received numerous Society of Professional Journalists awards and San Diego Press Club awards for her radio and website work at KPBS. She has also received 11 Southwestern area Emmy Awards in the categories of producing, writing, and sound design for promotional spots, as well as a National Promax and Telly Awards for working at Fox. She has a passion for Hong Kong cinema, Japanese monster movies, horror, and film noir. She collects movie posters and toys and loves putting on a haunted house every year. So Beth, let me unmute you, my dear. Beth, thank you so much for being a part of this today. So with no further ado, I'm just going to let you jump right into your story. And then when you're done, just let me know and we can touch base right after, okay?
Okay.
Right.
I just want to throw in this one thing that happened yesterday, which was not really from the arts world, but I was in my kitchen and I looked out my window and there was a woman in a brightly colored clown costume running down my street who jumped in the cab of a truck that was pulling a bright yellow and pink trailer. I have no idea what they were doing. I don't know if it was some weird birthday party thing, but it was just this like strange, surreal moment. And I didn't have a camera or anything. And I was kind of like, wow, this is just odd. And there's like things like that. A friend of mine told me they saw two people in T-Rex costumes bouncing across the street. So, I mean, for me, the whole quarantine and sheltering at home has this very surreal kind of quality to it. I mean, I live with my son who is a gamer. So to him, life has not changed at all. He stays in his room. He plays games. He communicates with his friends just as he always has. But, you know, for many of us who aren't impacted directly by the virus, you know, it's just strange. We're just at home and doing kind of the things, you know, for me, I'm still working, I'm still watching movies. But, you know, it's really inspiring to me to see all these film festivals that I've worked with for years, you know, especially the Latino Film Festival, because, you know, they were the ones who had to cancel their event the day it was supposed to start. I mean, that is a huge financial blow. And also, you know, you put all that work and passion into, you know, creating an event and picking your films and wanting to share them, and to cancel on the day you're supposed to start. And then having to fall back and regroup and close their cinema, also, you know, the digital gym, and start figuring out ways to how do you create a film community online. And, you know, the Asian Film Festival, the Latino, the Italian Film Festival, you know, they've all been working in different ways to create that community. And, you know, with my own friends, I'm part of this group called Film Geeks that we run events at Digital Gym. And, you know, we love seeing films together. And, you know, when people were looking for escape during the Depression, you could go to a movie and you could physically go to a theater and be in the same space with other people. And right now we're denied that ability to kind of congregate and get that, you know, sense of pleasure when you're watching a comedy and a bunch of people are laughing with you, or, you know, you're watching a horror film and you all get to jump together in a scare. So, you know, we've been doing these, we call them Zoom in theaters, and we, you know, pick a film, we all Zoom together, and it's like Mystery Science Theater 3000 or something. So far we've picked mostly, you know, silly films and an action film. But, you know, it's nice to see. I mean, we're really fortunate in some ways. I mean, this pandemic is devastating to a lot of people, but to those of us who are able to just shelter in home, we have all these great tools that people are putting to use. And my family Zooms once a day, and, you know, I'm talking to relatives I haven't seen or talked to this much in like 10 years. So and, you know, my mom's in her 80s and she's learning how to do Zoom. She doesn't like using a telephone, but she's managing to, you know, get on and do Zoom conferencing. So I'm just inspired by the fact that businesses and arts organization and people are learning to pivot quickly and try to tap into things that maybe they've never used before, or they're just learning how to use. And, you know, I'm hopeful that this will continue to grow, and that after we can get out and still congregate, that we can still make use of some of these tools in ways that are of our choosing, instead of, you know, having them kind of forced upon us. But I'm very hopeful. So a lot of creativity out there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I love what you're saying about how, you know, I think this is since a paradigm shift, right? That we're living through. Things will never be the same again. We will certainly congregate again, but there are some of these wonderful tools that have forced us to communicate with people, like you said, that you never used to talk to every day, and now all of a sudden you're even more connected than you were before. Mm-hmm. So it's a really sort of good observation about what humanity does to survive and thrive in moments of crisis. Thank you. And so I have an opportunity to ask you a couple of questions. One of them, what organization other than your own and the ones you're related to is inspiring you the most right now?
Well, it's a little of a cheat because I am related to the organization, but Media Arts Center, we use Digital Gym to screen a lot of our films, but, you know, their ability to bounce back. And I really want to give a shout out to Moises, who's their programmer there. He really selects his films carefully. And, you know, the fact that they very quickly started to screen the films that would have been playing at Digital Gym and get them out to an audience. And, I really appreciate the fact that he shows films here that's the only way people would have to see them on a big screen, is the fact that he programs them. Otherwise, they'd never make it to San Diego. So, they've worked to get their classes online, to get their films online, to try and figure out how to do, some discussions and stuff. And, a lot of the other festivals are doing that too, but because I work with them closely, I get to see kind of very immediate ways that that's happening. And I really think Moises is a great programmer too. And I want to just give a shout out to him for all that he's doing.
Cool, thank you. And the second opportunity is a shameless plug. Go for it. What are you working on? What should we know about? How do we find out about it?
Right now, because we can't physically meet in a theater and do our Film Geek screenings, I would like to just plug my podcast. So Cinema Junkie, you can find it at kpbs.org/Cinema Junkie. And right now you can find a discussion with a epidemiologist about contagion and why he uses that film to teach a class on epidemiology. But if that's too close to home and increasing your anxiety and stress about the pandemic, I also am doing a set of escapist film podcasts. So the first one is on screwball comedies, and then there's one on spy films, silly spy films, and then also some on some pre-code films. So you can either increase your anxiety and stress with pandemic movies, or you can escape. But the podcast is really fun for me. It's the thing I love.
Very cool. Thank you. And the last thing I'll just ask is, tell us about your friend behind you.
Oh, well, Greedo is practicing COVID safe, social distancing and mask wearing. So, I just want to show that we are practicing that at home.
Good. Thank you so much. So hang out with us.
He's from one of my haunts from Halloween. So
yeah. So hang out with us for a little bit. We're going to move on to the next speaker, and we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. Hopefully you can stick around. I know you need to cut out a little bit early. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on to our next speaker. Let me get him here. So moving on to our next speaker is James Brown. He's the owner of Bread and Salt Gallery, an experimental center for the arts. Jim is the principal of public architecture and planning. His career spans the fields of furniture making, public and gallery art, architecture, and design build. James feels that these fields complement, inform, and cajole each other, as well as ultimately strengthen the design solution. He believes in the credo of roots, deeds, and feats. Roots, remember your history and build upon it. Deeds, give to your community and colleagues. And feats, attempt the improbable from time to time. These ideals are keenly reflected in his work. One of James' numerous projects, Bread and Salt, is located in Logan Heights near downtown San Diego. The 40,000 square foot building, which dates to 1896, was formerly Weber's bread factory. The name Bread and Salt represents a nod to the building's history and is considered a traditional welcoming of guests. Central to the scheme of Bread and Salt is providing workspace for the area's craftspeople and artists. This is a space where artists move in to showcase their work as a part of the Bread and Salt project. It is a design hub where artists, architects, and designers come to experiment and understand the art space. So welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you, Susanna. Thanks for that introduction. And hi, everybody. It's a big group. This is fantastic turnout to listen to people talk about what they're up to. I was looking at the calendar in preparation for this, and only in our last big event we had was March 8th, which isn't that long ago. It's like 5 weeks ago, and it was one of our favorite events of the year in our event space. Anyway, it's a Taste of Mexico, and it's a mezcal tasting event, actually. And then the night that ended, my wife and our Bread and Salt artistic director and I, sat in the space and said, I think, and at the time, we were reading about what was going on in the world, but it hadn't quite hit home. I think the official number of people that could get together in a group at any one given time in San Diego was 500 at that moment. And we were well below that, but we felt uneasy, and we said, hey, we have to be ahead of the bell curve on this and not behind it. So we made that decision that night to attempt to cancel every single event, big and small, at Bread and Salt, which is a big decision because our event space is what to a large degree, along with our rents, pays for the arts in the building. And Beth was mentioning the Media Arts Center. Like less than 2 weeks away from that date, we were hosting 3 of their events: their opening night party, their closing night party, and one of their film screenings. And that one, I wasn't at all comfortable, and just calling Ethan and saying, "Hey, we're canceling," because we felt how big of a week it was for that group. So I asked Ethan. I said, "Hey, Ethan, you know what's going on, and if you would consider, if you do make the decision to close, which is totally up to you, then we won't require any deposits or anything. You'll be whole as far as Bread and Salt is concerned." And we were gonna do it if he wanted to do it, but he made the decision. They made their decision on their own to cancel that event, which was, I think, an important decision and a tough one. I know a really tough one for that group. That was rough. And we got together shortly thereafter, Isabel, myself, and our lead curator, Tom DeMello, and sat down and said, "Hey, what are we going to do? We have an empty building, and we're almost like the professional version of a family that gets together in their house and talks about what's going to happen in the future." And I forget who came up with the idea. It wasn't me. It was either Isabel or Tom. So let's start talking to our artists and having interviews. So a week later, almost immediately, Tom DeMello on Tuesday through Saturday started hosting these 1-hour live interviews on Instagram. And it's every Tuesday through Saturday between 1 and 2. And it's crazy. There's a lot of work. Tom's probably never worked so hard as a curator, because it's like having to do a book report every single day, because you have to do a certain amount of research in order to interview someone for an hour. He's a natural, though. It's so great. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. I just want to read, and so our idea was to start like with the people in the building, and then the artists that showed in the building, and eventually we sort of spread out to the larger San Diego community. We haven't even gotten there yet, but some of the people we've done since then are Kathleen Mitchell, Michael James Armstrong, Melissa Walter, Paola Villasenor, that's Panka, Lee Levy, Andrew Alcacid, Kaori Fukuyama, Claudia Cano, Mario Chacon, Daniela Kelly, Daniel Barron Corrales, Tatiana Ortiz Rubio, Max Daly, Chris Wassel, Max Lafano, and Griseldo Rosas. Those are the ones that have been done already. It's really cool. And there's one today at 1 o'clock, so you should hang on for that one. Today's Sophie Ramos. And then if you go on our website, you'll see our whole calendar. So that's a really neat thing that never would have happened. And we're learning so much about artists in this town that I never knew about, because Tom manages to talk about very offbeat, personal, just kind of like off to the side topics with these artists. It's really neat to learn more about the artists and residents of the Bread and Salt building. Another thing that we decided we wanted to try and do was support the artists still. Obviously, we weren't able to really have, at first we let 10 people in the gallery at a time. Then we said people could go out on the sidewalk and look through the window, and which they can still do. But we came up with the idea of having a separate, oh look, I've already talked too long. Dang it, my alarm went off. Okay, I'll just wrap up. And so we're instead of taking a percentage of the sales like we normally do, we have a special section on the website that allows people to buy art, and 100%, all of it goes to the artists. And Bread and Salt is not taking a cut there. So I could talk a lot more, but
no, that's great. This is really wonderful. I'm going to do a couple of follow-up questions. And I absolutely understand that moment that you had with your wife sitting there and making that decision. It was such a rough decision for us. Also, we canceled all of our events through July. That's a big hit for us that produces events regularly. So I absolutely understand that feeling. It was this gut sort of like your intuition just saying, no, we can't take that risk. It's not worth it. Like there's nothing worth it. Yeah. Right. So, more power to you for being ahead of the curve, as you said. And I love the way that you all have innovated, and I've watched some of those Instagram chats, and yeah, he is a natural, so it does work. It does it's perfect for him. I hope he continues it beyond. I have a couple of questions. Number one, what organization other than your own is inspiring you the most right now?
My wife introduced me to this Instagram page. It's called the Travelers Club. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of these people, but they are so, I don't know much about them, but I just started following them and looking at what they're posting. So it's this really unique mix of culture and art and history about San Diego. And I'm just like sort of entranced by this group called the Travelers Club right now. I don't even know who they are. I have no idea. But
okay. Cool. That's a good one. And then this is your opportunity for a shameless plug. So tell us what you're working on that you're, I mean, you just sort of shared something, but what do you want us to follow? How do we find you?
If I knew who would, we're doing something, we started something called the Bread and Salt Press. And we're not going to feature all the artists that show in our main gallery, but our very first book is on Punka, a street artist from Tijuana, Paula Villaseñor. This is her third show at Bread and Salt. She's been with us a long time, so it makes a lot of sense that she's the subject of our first book. It's not a catalog. The book is called Los Perdidos, the lost ones, and if I could share screen, I'd show you, but I don't see that that's an option. So,
I did allow the option.
It's not here, but well, I can describe it.
So all of this, yeah, I mean, anything that you would like to share with the audience who registered, we'll be sending a follow-up email with all of the links and everything. So anything that you want me to share, please be sure you send it to me, in the next couple of days, and we'll forward it out to the community.
Right. We're doing it. Well, we haven't done it yet because we can't quite afford to, but we decided to put on our website, we want to print 300 books. The book is done. It was designed by Taylor Stahl, really talented book designer in San Diego. And she worked closely with Isabel and also Paula. There's two versions. 200 of the 300 books will be signed by Paula, and 100 of them will have an original drawing inside the cover. So the version with just the plain version with her signature will sell for $45 a copy. And the copy with the original artwork will be $175 a copy. If people can go on our website and want to pre-order a book, if we can get like 1/3 of the way there to being able to print the books by promises, then we'll do it. So it's a cool book. It's beautiful. I really wish I could show it to you, but you can go on our website and see like some teaser images. It's cool. It's really nice.
That's cool. Great. I mean, I hope that comes to fruition. So we'll be on the lookout for that. And thank you for sharing your story. If you can hang out with us a little bit longer, we're going to move on to the next guest. Thank you so much. All right. So here we go. So our next guest has become a good friend in the last few months as I got to know him, and we welcomed him as one of our featured artists for an Artist at the Table. Jonathon Glass is the Executive Director of the San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture. Jonathon is an experienced leader with a demonstrated history of working in grant making and organizational development, strategic planning, board diversity, fund development, international project management, creative placemaking, cultural policy and a creative economy, and urban planning. His master's work was art and architectural history from the University of Illinois at Chicago, and his bachelor's work in public policy and urban economics from Indiana University. So welcome, Mr. Glass. Let me unmute you, sir. There you are. All right, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I have to say, James Brown and I have been trying to get together for probably more than a year, and it hasn't worked. I'm in and out of Bread and Salt all the time. James is never there, so it's delightful to actually see your face here, James. I'm sure we're going to do it in person soon. So, I've been thinking a lot about this moment we're in, and so I've had the opportunity to live through snowstorms, blizzards, all of that happens in the Northeast and the Great Lakes. I spent a long time in Houston So, we lived through two really bad hurricanes there, one of which did substantial damage on a number of the big arts organizations. Collections were impacted, artists lost their studios. It was really terrible. And then an earthquake in LA. But this actually feels really different to me than those. All of those occasions, we kind of stopped, we put life on hold, and then we went back to work. And it was kind of like we went in, we fixed what was going on, and then life was back to normal. Worst case scenario was maybe it took a while for your building to get rebuilt, but basically it was business as usual, life as usual. This is like a suspension and a revisiting of our lives. It's really been profoundly different for me. I think in part it's because I'm at home. So I'm here with my husband and living and working here every day, which has been fantastic. But also working for the city of San Diego, my colleagues are suddenly they're doing emergency work. So they're working in homeless shelter and they're working in parks. And, the team has just completely pivoted into emergency service, which is amazing to see happening. And it reminds you of what public service is about, and why people do public service. So I was also thinking about my personal professional life and what I do on a daily basis. And Susanna, you know, we've talked about this. Unlike some of my colleagues on the conversation today, I have a pretty transactional professional life. A lot of my work is about money and contracts and all of that we don't necessarily want to talk about, but it really is the daily work of my professional life. There is the opportunity to talk about cultural policy and how the arts can be part of the bigger work of the city, but it's transactional. So I get my arts experiences after 5 and on weekends. That's when it is so important for me to actually be out in the community and experiencing why I do what I do. It's what nourishes me. But because I really have this transactional life, professional life, I should say, a lot of my communications are like that also. You know, we all work really quickly now. So there's a lot of not only text, forget phone, one-word texts that are, basically approving something. So I was going through some files in my office a couple months ago when we were moving, and I found these files from the 1990s. And there were all of these internal memos that were like 5 and 7 pages long. And they were setting up arguments for why the arts should be funded, why the arts should be supportive, what the role is of an artist inside city government, why we really need to not just advocating for supporting the ecosystem of the arts, but why individual artists are so important in our community. And it was amazing to see these documents that were 5, 6, 7 pages long, that were really elegantly done. And there was actually a lot of passion and conviction in these. My staff and I sat down and we were looking at this. We were like, when was the last time you wrote anything? Since you did your thesis, when was the last time you actually wrote anything like this? It was amazing. So over the last 2 weeks, I have been communicating, I should say this more succinctly. I've been receiving emails from colleagues here in San Diego that are usually just more about business as usual. And these communications are lengthy, they're thoughtful, they're heartfelt, they are highly personal, and talking about not just the immediate environment of how do we keep the doors open of our organization, or what do I do because a show has been canceled that I was going to be in a few months. But really the conversations have been more about, firstly, they're human focused. They've been focused on their colleagues and the people who work for them, and very much the artists that the organizations employ, show, present. And what's next? There's definitely been a sense of right now, we'll get through right now. It's not going to be easy, but we'll get through right now. But what does this mean? What are the lessons we've learned? How are we going to think differently? What are our real core principles about what we do? Who we are as artists and creatives? What is the role of the organizations? What is the role of creatives? How should we think differently about who we are as a community? Really profound, beautiful things. So I've been taking away from this that we have the will, we have the shoulder strength, we certainly have the intellect and creativity to really think what the next iteration of arts and culture look like in our city and what our role really is going to be in this city. So every day I feel more, not just inspired, but confident that we're collectively going to chart the next chapter. So it's left me feeling really very eager to get on with the work, but also really moved by the humanity that we're sharing with each other.
That's really beautiful. Thank you. I was trying not to get emotional as you were saying all of that, because I understand what you're saying when it comes to, you know, just the humanity behind all of this. And it's true. I think many people have switched from this transactional kind of relationship that you have, business, and suddenly people are looking to each other. Forget all that. How are you? How's your life? Are you safe? Right? It reminds me, I was living in New Jersey and working in the city when September 11th happened in New York City. And that's the one big takeaway that I had is, you know, New York at the time before 9/11, and now it's kind of come back to that, but it used to be this city where you're just kind of like a rat in a maze, and you don't want to, nobody looks at you in the eyes, and if they do, it's not a good thing, you know, and you just want to keep moving and keep moving. And after that happened, once the city was open again, everyone was looking at you in the eyes. It was so unnerving because you're not used to it when you're living in New York. You don't do that. So it was very strange to just see, you know, all these people like, are you okay? Are you okay? Were you affected? How are you? How are you? And you may be getting some of that as you take your dog for a walk or do anything here in the community. People are sort of seeking wanting to know that you're okay, I guess. So there's a beauty to that. There's a collective humanity that we're all, you know, engaged with here. And it's a beautiful thing. I do think that something great is going to come from this once it's over. Let's just not forget the artists that got us through this, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. So I have 2 questions for you. What organization other than your own is inspiring you the most right now? And then a shameless plug.
So the first one is really hard because I really shouldn't do a shout out to a San Diego organization. So I'm going to cheat. And I'm actually going to do a shout out to our friends and colleagues who work for the libraries and work for the Parks Department, who have become frontline workers. Who would have guessed that people who are behind the desk in our libraries are now tending to people who are in homeless shelters. So I'm thinking about those folks a lot and the amazing work that they're doing. And the shout out is so easy. So 4:30 on Thursday, a press conference, please tune in either on city Facebook, the city's website, and then it will be run on a number of broadcast platforms. The mayor is making an announcement about the arts in the context of this crisis. So it's all I can say, but please join us at 4:30 on Thursday.
Exciting things coming our way, it sounds like.
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Jonathon Glass, Executive Director of the San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to mute you. Please stick around and we'll move on to our next speaker. Okay, our next speaker is Shayla James, Executive Committee Chair for Rising Arts Leaders of San Diego. Let me unmute you, my dear. There you are. Unmute. There you are. Okay, Shayla balances her time as an educator, performer, and researcher in the nonprofit sector. She's a multi-instrumentalist who believes in being an advocate for arts education and programming for all ages. She is currently the owner of Sempre Music Studio, an energetic and creativity-focused studio that offers high-quality music education to students of all backgrounds and ages. Her work is rooted in community engagement, empowerment, and collaboration across disciplines. She has worked at Vela Musica, San Diego Community Music Center, and Blind Spot Collective. She's taught for Arts for Learning of San Diego and has volunteered in the Learning and Community Engagement Department at the San Diego Symphony. Shayla received a Bachelor of Music degree in Piano Performance and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science from Coe College. She attended UC San Diego for a Master of Arts degree in music with an emphasis in integrative studies, ethnomusicology, and critical studies. She enjoys hiking, putting together puzzles, and performing with her rock pop band. So you're probably doing way more puzzles than you ever were before, right?
Yeah, I've got one over here just waiting for me to put it together.
Can you tell us the name of your band before we go on?
Oh, sure. We're called the Swiss Rolls.
All right. All right.
That's a dessert.
Oh, okay. Okay, Shayla, I'm going to mute myself and give you the floor to share your story, okay? Here you go.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Susanna, and thank you for having me here with all these amazing speakers. And hello to you all who are watching and listening. So after reflecting on what has happened the last few weeks, I've realized that I've experienced a variety of emotions, fear, sadness, happiness, uneasiness, and even hope. And my mood changes greatly each day, which was startling to me at first. Sometimes I would feel exhausted and unmotivated. Other times I'd be very determined and motivated. And I wonder why I was feeling these ways, because I'm safe, I'm healthy, I'm still teaching, and I'm quarantining with loved ones. But there was and still is some uncertainty about the future and questions around what's next, just to echo Jonathon a bit. And I'm still figuring out each day at a time, but at this point I've learned that all those feelings are okay, and it's okay to feel the complexities of what is happening internally and externally. It's just a challenging and confusing time for many of us. And so I just want to say, for anyone who has mixed or confused emotions right now, anyone struggling, you know, it's okay, and I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for all of us, and I hope that you have those that you can reach out to for support. And I just want to say that if you need an ear or a resource, or need to get in contact with someone, like, please feel free to contact me via social media, Facebook or email. I'll try to make myself available. And I just wanted to start with that, just to say that, just for those who might need to hear that right now. In the past month, I've felt extremely lucky to keep in touch with family, friends, and colleagues. I'm a part of a few communities in San Diego that have really helped me get through each day. And they're communities where I see artists like really lifting each other up, checking in on each other, as you all said, really, and still really invested in their art forms. And so I'd like to just briefly talk about those experiences. So a space that I've had peace and grounding in is the teaching artist community. I'm a music teaching artist, and there's a group of us who have been meeting each week to check in with each other and express our feelings through our various art forms. So usually one of us will take turns leading the group in some kind of activity, and then we discuss, like, you know, how our week went. And it's a 30 to 45-minute Zoom call, but it's like been a really good place to slow down and just reflect on what I've been feeling through the week, and then connect and just empathize with others and what they're going through too. And I see new faces each week, and everyone's just teaching me so much about different ways to teach and to engage with others. And Sarah Reese Kusi hosts those check-ins each week on Wednesdays. And so then I was thinking about my music studio, Simper Music. As I said, I'm still teaching private lessons online. And I was trying to think of ways, you know, I'm not one-on-one with my students, like how can I still connect with them, keep them engaged, brighten their moods, because they're dealing with a lot. They're not in school, they're not seeing their friends regularly. And so last week I asked my students to participate in a practice challenge, a quarantine practice challenge. And the idea was that the students and their families could send me short videos throughout the month, so I could, you know, give feedback, but also challenge them to practice more, have fun, and be creative with the videos. And it didn't hurt that I told them that whoever sent me the most videos would receive an Amazon gift card at the end. And so, of course, there's just this one little 6-year-old student who's had his mom and dad send me like 20 videos so far, because he's just determined to win. And so it's just like things like that that's just really given me so much laughter and peace and joy this past month. I've just enjoyed seeing my students grow and progress, even if it's over FaceTime and Zoom. I feel like I can still connect with them and then still look forward to the future. And I also want to take a time to shout out Rising Arts Leaders. I've been a part of that organization for 3 years, and now I'm the chair this year. Strange year to be chair. I'm so grateful to be a part of that board and be around people who care so much about the arts and culture community in San Diego. And since we're an all volunteer board, it's been important to me this month to make sure that our board members are okay. As you said, just checking in and making sure that everyone's okay. And there was a moment where we realized in mid-March that we needed to pause and focus on ourselves, and then come back together to reassess our plans for the next few months. And so I think through that, it's just been just a learning process. But again, I'd say that I'm just so grateful to be a leader in that group and to be surrounded by 11 other leaders. So I guess to kind of conclude my experiences here, my thread through all of this is similar to what a few of you have already said, but it's just that through these experiences, we have the power to change someone's day and more. And it's just by checking in on them, listening to what people have to say, listening to what they might need during this time. It's a small gesture, but it has the potential to connect yourself and other people to each other, remind them that they're not alone. I feel so much more complete when, even during this call. And so to me, that's powerful, and that's the future I would like to see. It's just, I don't want that these months are just written off as like, oh, well, like that happened. I think it could be something that we could really learn from each other, and realizing that this is a time to connect with ourselves, connect in different ways. And I know I've had heart-to-hearts with people and thought of ideas that I didn't think I had the time for. And so much has come out of those conversations. And I think people don't have to always agree, but just by taking the time to listen to each other and possibly collaborate for something in the future, it's just so worth it. And so I ultimately hope that these micro experiences can shape how our San Diego arts and culture community can shape what happens next.
Oh, I didn't mean to mute you. I still want to have a conversation with you. Hang on a second. Let me get you back. There you go. Okay. All right. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So Shayla, thank you for saying all that. And, you know, it's important, you know, when you're in positions of leadership, as you said, you know, to speak to things that typically are not expected of you, like mental health and emotional health. So everything that you just said about checking in and just making, you know, it's okay to feel all the feelings, you know, that's one of the things that I've been checking in twice a week with our interns, who thanks to them, we've, you know, been able to produce so much creative content on social media, you know, sharing of resources and that supports the creative industry community. But I did, you know, say to them the other day, can please just take a break. Their task has been like scouring the internet for resources. Their task has been just, you know, sending me tons of information on something that could be either helpful, funny, innovative, anything related to the arts and how we are, you know, we're all around the world experiencing this. But I told them, you know, I realized that you sort of took it for the team. You know, you've been taking all that in, and it's a lot to process, to be every day online, reading these articles that you never know what you're going to read. You know, you never know where it's going to take you. And that is a dangerous thing to do. So it's important to just sort of shut that down every once in a while, take a mental break, and just step outside and look at the beautiful sky and experience the wind on your face, and, you know, do that kind of thing. So, and it's okay to feel all the feelings. One of the people on our board is an expressive arts therapist, and she mentioned how we are all experiencing a trauma collectively, as you know, as in humanity is, and everybody responds to trauma in different ways. Some people will respond by getting busy, you know, and getting really, really active and really busy. I'm sort of that way. Some people will suppress it. Some people will eat. Some people won't eat. You know, some people get really, you know, short fuses, etc. So a year from now or months from now, we'll sort of have this collective moment where we're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling these things? What is this thing in my stomach, this whatever? It's because you're still processing that trauma, and it's okay. It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you got to cry every day a little bit just to get it out of your system, go for it. You know, feel all the feelings. We've got to get through this together. So thank you for saying all that. And so 2 questions. What organization is inspiring you the most that is not your organization these days?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the shameless plug, right?
Yeah, so actually one of the first online forums I started to see pop up on Facebook and Instagram was the San Diego Virtual Cabaret Series. And that was created by William Robinson. And I just kind of have seen this kind of grow in the past month, and it's up to like almost 800 members. And I just keep seeing videos of people singing, dancing, playing music, sharing their favorite music, sharing videos and photos of their past performances, getting out their costumes and doing performances. And so I've just seen so much joy and openness and support in that forum. And it's inspired me to dust off some tunes and practice. And so, you know, if you have a chance, like, check that out, because it's a lot of fun, and it's just like, it's just been a good resource for me, and seeing people still engaging in what they love and talking about what's going on.
Yeah.
And then a shameless plug would be kind of circling back to the teaching artist community. I have a group called Teaching Artists Circle on Facebook, and it came out of some work that I had done with teaching artists of creating like in-person forums. And so I decided to put that online and just see where it would go. And so through that, there's a San Diego teaching artist group. There's about 80 of us on there that have just been sharing online teaching platforms and materials, emergency grant funding, because teaching artists are also a vulnerable population as contractors. And so, and then there's also calls for artists, and that's where our Wednesday check-ins are posted. So it's Wednesdays 1 to 2. So if you know of any teaching artists that are interested or wanting to join, share resources, or just talk about what's going on, that's also what I've been working on.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much. Okay, well, stick around. We're going to have a question and answer session at the end, and I'm going to mute you and move on to our next guest. So our next guest, great friend. I've known him for 15, 20 years or something like that, and have worked with him in the theater community as an actor, and it's my great privilege to welcome Sam Woodhouse. Sam Woodhouse is the artistic director of the San Diego Repertory Theater. Sam co-founded the San Diego Rep with D.W. Jacobs in 1976. He has since worked as a director, producer, or actor on more than 280 productions. As an actor, he's performed at the Rep stages in The Seafarer in the title role of King Lear, Proof, Hamlet, and with the San Diego Symphony Orchestra in the title role of Stravinsky's L'Histoire de Soldat. His recent directorial work in the Rep includes Hand to God, Evita, Manifestus Destinis, The Oldest Boy, Violet, Oedipus El Rey, Honky, El Henry with the La Jolla Playhouse, Venus and Fur, In the Heights, Federal Jazz Project, and In the Next Room, or the Vibrator play. In 2011, he directed American Night, the Ballad of Juan Jose for the Denver Center Theater Company. In 2003, he was awarded the Patty Shiley Award for Lifetime Achievement by KPBS and the prestigious Alonzo Award by the Downtown San Diego Partnership. In 2006, he and Jacobs were honored with the Craig Knoll Award by the San Diego Theater Critics Circle for 30 years of artistic dedication to downtown and diversity. Mr. Woodhouse, welcome.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you so much. Boy, it's really inspiring to hear all of you talk and share what's deep inside you, which I think is happening to a lot of us these days. We're sharing things that we don't usually share. I'm struck by Jonathon's use of the word transactional work. It struck me that listening to that probably the first thing I want to share is that I think the intimacy and openness of the rehearsal hall or the dressing room has made its way to the leadership administrative conversations. Certainly at my theater, we have a leadership team of about 7 or 8 people. We meet every day online, and the first 10 minutes are no longer agenda items of work to do, but there's simply a check-in with how is everybody doing emotionally, physically, how's your family doing, what are you thinking about? And suddenly the conversations are rolling in many different directions. The sense of a communal sharing of intimacy is happening in a way I haven't seen before. And that's fulfilling, and it's ironic as hell, of course, because it's happening online and not really in person. One of the things that happened to us recently that I want to share is something that I'm proud of, and I think made a big impact, is we opened a show called House of Joy on March 11th. And we had a big opening night party. Everyone dressed up. We have all these photos. And the next day we closed the show. So the opening night party was the closing night party. Our managing director, Larry Aldridge, decided that he was going to continue to pay the actors who were on contract through the end of the scheduled run of the show, which was 2.66 more weeks of work, including health benefits. A rare thing that happened in my profession, certainly all over the country. Actors were thrown out of work, pow, immediately. When you don't perform, you don't get paid. That wasn't the case. That was Larry's choice, and I'm forever grateful to him for doing that. But I want to also give a shout out to Tony's Pizza at 433 East Street, downtown San Diego. Now, this is not a restaurant recommendation. This is praise for Tony, who's a one-man shop, more or less. With the 6 feet distancing rule, only one person can go in the shop at a time. And mostly he sells slices. But when he's not selling slices to the very few people that are left downtown, he's making pies, and he's taking the Father Joe's Village, and he's driving down the convention center and giving them out to the homeless people. And it struck me how amazing that is, and that Tony is by no means a top of the line, highly profitable small business. This is practically a one-man operation who's dedicating the time that he no longer can sell pies to because there's no one buying them, to giving them away to people in the community. And I find that really, as a populist, I find that really very moving and inspiring to me, that someone would essentially take what they make and give it away to those who need it, which I think is a beautiful thing to do. So that's my thinking about what happens in our place and the generosity that's being shared, and what's happening at Tony's little place as he gives and he gives and he gives.
Wow. Thank you, Sam. I love that you shared a story that, it was sort of two short stories, but, number one related to what a tremendous gift that you gave to all those actors and creative, the scene designers and the tech people and all the staff. That is unheard of in the, in modern times of what's during this crisis. And it really just shows the reason you are where you are, because you're a giver. You're somebody that, respects the craft and respects the hard work that went into all of that, and realizes that, it's not just about the final product, but it's also the process and the relationships and the family that was created through the process of the theater. So thank you. And thank you for being there for all of them and all of us. And for those of you that missed, many people also got to experience the virtual version of House of Joy. So that was a wonderful sort of add-on that people got to experience. And then these sort of personal stories of just humanity, just people doing things. It's funny when they say, who has been more generous, the millionaire who gave $100 or the person who had nothing and gave his $100, right? So it's a perfect example of that is now is the time. If you have something to give, now's the time to give, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. Hang on 1 second. We're gonna move forward. Okay, so I accidentally skipped my friend Alessandra Montezuma. Please excuse me for that. I just unmuted you, so let me just switch over here. So Alessandra Montezuma, she's a wonderful woman, and I admire her very much. She's the gallery director at Mesa College Art Gallery and the head of museum studies at Mesa Community College. I'm quoting the San Diego Trib for your bio because it's a pretty well done one. Montezuma's love of painting propelled her from Santa Monica City College to the University of California, Los Angeles, where she earned her BA in studio art and her MFA in painting and printmaking. When she isn't busy organizing another exhibition, helping a student assemble one as part of the curriculum in the Museum Gallery Studies program, or teaching a course, she is raising twins, a son and a daughter, along with her husband, the widely known writer, historian, and urban theorist, Mike Davis. Welcome, Alessandra.
Thank you so much, Susanna. Thank you for inviting me. So I've been thinking about this for a little while, and I think that as an educator, one of the things that I try to offer my students is a view and a perspective of the arts in San Diego. I think one of the most valuable things, besides the skills that they're gonna learn in terms of working in the museum world or working as artists, is the wonderful venues that we have here in San Diego. All of the artists that are working very hard, our connections and relationships with our sister city of Tijuana. So when this happened, all of those opportunities to bring my students out into the world, to visit the museums, to have conversations with arts professionals, to go to events and lectures, all that was, gone. But what has been really interesting to me is that many of the museums and arts organizations, such as Bread and Salt, the Oceanside Museum of Art, Lux, they immediately jump into a new mode, and they started putting up this all of this content, on our social media platforms. And so they started, generating artist talks, tours of the exhibitions, and other type of projects that my students could still enjoy and where they could still appreciate and learn a lot. And I'm really excited about this because I think that one of the things that I've seen in my 20 years working here in San Diego in the arts is that we have a lot of great work. We have a lot of great artists, but we're not really great at documenting what we do. So a lot of people don't know of what's happening here because we ourselves are so busy getting the content, getting things out there, promoting them, that we often forget about documenting and archiving and creating some sort of repository for people to kind of go back. And maybe this is my academic hat, my art historian hat, that I think that all of the things that are being generated right now are going to be a wonderful resource for us to continue using. And maybe the city of San Diego, or maybe one of our colleges or universities, will think of creating a repository for all of these materials. And I think that would be really, really useful for our future generations. And also to celebrate what we do here all the time. And to tell our friends in LA that we do great stuff over here too, and in New York. And the other exciting thing is that when this happened, we were ready to have our reception for an exhibition with muralist Gloria Muriel and Aida Valencia and Belice Iristai and Irene de Watteville. And since the college closed down fairly quickly, we actually closed before the public schools. We couldn't have a reception or bring people to see the show. So I did a very impromptu, tour of the exhibition right as I was going to pick up my teaching materials, and just had to like sneak out. And it was probably really bad. And I did it with my little iPhone. It was not polished at all. But on the other hand, people really appreciated that I was able to put something out there for them to experience the exhibit. And the fact that it was rushed and then it wasn't like that professional also communicated that even under the circumstances, we can still be creative and we can still connect with each other. And the other thing in terms of also, I guess, putting out all this content to be shared is that I had friends in Italy, I had friends in Hong Kong who are going through the same situation. This is a pandemic, is happening all over the world. Many of them are artists. And so they were able to see the things that I was trying to do. And it kind of, all of that content, became spread globally. So that's also something that we can look forward as we continue after this is over. Take advantage of this way of sharing what we're doing.
Oh, tell us the name again. There we go. Tell us the name again of the exhibition that you did a walkthrough of virtually.
You can put it in the links later, but it was called Ludicrous Tales, a Topsy-Turvy Quartet.
Yeah, it had a wonderful
Topsy-Turvy world, so maybe we shouldn't have picked that name because it kind of, came to be, but it's a Topsy-Turvy world.
It was very appropriate, I think. It was very appropriate. But I love what you're saying about how we I love how you're saying how we have to document all of this. And it's true, it's forced us to keep a documentation of all of the things that we're doing, and that this is going to live on. So I hope that becomes a trend, that after we are able to commune again, that we're able to also capture and remember to capture all those moments. We don't know what the months will bring, we don't know what this will look like, but I'm hoping that it becomes sort of a renewed respect for artists and the craft as we're sitting here with nothing to do in our homes, to be able to go online and go to the Lux and, go to Mesa College Gallery's website and experience some of these, even if it's only virtually. So thank you. So I know that you need to cut out a little bit early. I have a couple of questions for you. Number one, what organization outside of your own are you most inspired by? And give us a shameless plug.
Sure. So and I just want to clarify what I meant by documenting. It's not just this moment, but it's the fact that this is going to incite us to document what we do in the arts, not necessarily when there's a crisis, but just to encourage encourage us to create something for the future.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, a lot of artists are also reflecting on this. I'm going to, and I think I did mention many of the museums who are putting out, and organizations that are putting out virtual content. But I wanted to bring attention to a group of artists. And I'm really interested, as somebody who came, from this perspective of Chicano artists who just did things on their own without any resources, and just jumped in and changed things. So right now there's a group of artists. Some of them are members of the To Do Mending Project, and they include Michelle Montjoy, Shaban Arnold, Bhavna Mehta, Akiko Mims. And so they have been making masks for the healthcare workers. And I think that that's a really important way that our visual artists are coming together. And when our government hasn't provided enough PPE for our healthcare workers and was really so unprepared, these artists decided that we're going to jump in and try to make things a little bit better. So I have great admiration, and this is happening here in San Diego. There was an article about it just recently, but it's also happening in Los Angeles. I have artist friends in Los Angeles who are making masks, and so that has been really inspiring to me, because it's just like directly, how can we help with this? And it just shows, and they're not selling the masks, they're just producing them, sometimes producing like 100 masks a day and bringing them to whoever needs them or requires them. So that has been very inspiring to me.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. And do you have a shameless plug, or are you a member of that organization?
I'm not a member of that organization. Okay. I'm just a shameless plug would be more about our gallery. So I will share with you the link. We are going to have a virtual conversation with Gloria Muriel. And then because of the shift to this modality, this crisis modality, we are actually going to have the student art exhibition, but it's going to be virtual. And we're going to create a website for our students to still be able to feature their work at the end of the semester, but do it in a virtual way. So if you go to our Mesa College Art Gallery Facebook page, or on Instagram, or to our website, you can find the links to our social media so that you can connect with those events. And so we'll continue to just try to provide you with some of the information and materials that we were ready to show you in person.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Alessandra. I know you need to cut out a little bit early, but we have another couple of speakers, and if you can stick around as long as you can, I'm sure you'd like to hear those stories as well. So thank you for being a part of this. Okay, I'm moving on to our next speaker. Again, I jumped. I don't know how that happened. I was so eager to get Sam on or something. Okay, so our next speaker is a great friend. We worked with him last year in our Catalyst season, and he's an incredible award-winning spoken word artist. Gil Sotu is a Navy veteran, a multifaceted poet, playwright, musician, DJ, and performing artist. He's a 2-time Grand Slam poetry champion, 2-time Raw Performing Artist of the Year, and 3-time TEDx San Diego speaker. Currently, he's a teaching artist and a commissioned playwright for the Old Globe Theater, a program director and teaching artist with Intrepid Theater Company, as well as an artist in residence at Maker's Church. He has been commissioned to produce original pieces for leading arts and community organizations such as the San Diego Symphony, the United Way of San Diego County, Feeding America, San Diego International Fringe Festival, and the San Diego Opera, just to name a few. Gil is one of my favorite people in the world, and I'm very happy to welcome him. Welcome, Gil.
Thank you, Susanna. How you doing? It's just a pleasure to be here. You know, looking down this list of all-star art creators and administrators, I feel really humbled and honored, really, to be here. What I wanted to speak about today was really about intention, and something kind of that happened with me. So I'm a father of 2.5. So one's on the way, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I'm just working through arts, being a teaching artist like Shayla, and doing performances and everything. And so when this happened, and I also like DJ, different events. So when this happened, like gigs were just dropping off, like boom, boom, boom. In like 1 week, it was like this canceled, hoping for this one to stay going. Like maybe it's enough. Cancel. So in the matter of a week, it was like really sweating as to what are we going to do to provide? What am I going to do personally to provide for my family? And then seeing everybody else in need. And really when I get to that dark place, my instinct is to jump to meditation. So meditation and / prayer. But so I started meditating and really putting into my mind and into the forefront, and the picture that I saw was opportunities coming my way. Also, I made it a point when I get to that dark spot to reach out to other people and just see how they're doing and see if there's anything I could do for them. And sometimes when you do that, it gets you out of your own funk, and then you're able to just focus on other people for a chance. And then so we just had these like really honest exchanges of where we're at, and people started calling me and just out of the blue. And what began to happen very quickly is just opportunities just started popping up where people kind of shifted their dynamics in the way that they did things, and things that were canceled started coming back. And like, I work for the Old Globe Theater. I'm a teaching artist there. And they just like with Sam's organization, they allowed the teaching artists to get paid for an additional couple weeks for work that we weren't doing, just to keep us afloat. And then I got commissioned by the Old Globe to write a short 10-minute play for this national program that they're doing. All these big theaters are doing this, what is it called? The Play at Home initiative, where everybody's writing 10-minute plays that are unproducible, like put it out in outer space and do all this crazy thing. So it was just amazing how, once I put the intention out there and started really talking to people and being honest, not asking for anything, just believing that things were going to happen, things started happening. So it was just a really beautiful moment and confirmation that when you ask, like, the universe really conspires for your good if you really move towards that. And during the same time, I was still working on future projects, and not just sitting around and like, woe is me, but like really trying to make the most out of what was happening. Now I'm like super busy and I got all these different future projects, but I could still use more if anyone has gigs, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to cancel myself out, but yeah, it's been great. It's been great. That's basically my story. And let's see. I'm gonna end it there.
I need to unmute myself. Yes. So did I, wait a minute. Sorry, Gil, let me get you in. So technical difficulties are just like a guarantee here, right?
Right.
I mean, this is our new modern world. So thanks for bearing with me. There were only a couple, not too bad. Mm-hmm. Gil, I have a couple of follow-up questions. Number one, what organization other than the ones that you are connected to yourself are inspiring you the most these days?
Well, I'm going to go big and small. So big, what's really inspiring me is John Krasinski. I'm butchering his name. Some Good News Network. Man, like, you can't watch that and just get kind of choked up and just to see the good out there. Like, I even try to filter my news through a lens of kind of lightness, like watching Trevor Noah or some of the late shows where it's not just super heavy, but even with that, you still kind of can get depressed. But watching what's going on with Some Good News has just been a really lightness in my heart. And I love sharing those because I think that we all need it. So if you guys have not watched it, that's the thing to watch. And then locally, really, I can't deny it. Susanna, your company, Vanguard Culture, has been great. Just that you're organizing things like this, that I'm still getting newsletters and you're still promoting other artists. That's what I love so much about Vanguard Culture, is that you really are busy. Even in this time of economic crisis, you're really busy trying to promote other people. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's going to come around, talking about intention and caring for others. I think that's going to come around full circle for you.
Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it very much. Shameless plug, what are you working on? Where can we see you? Where can we find it?
Yeah, two quick things. One is that I was commissioned, not paid, but asked by TEDx San Diego to create a spoken word piece about what's going on and how we can really push through it and come together. So that just got released yesterday. So if you look up my name, Gil Sotu, in TEDx, it's called Us Can Do It. And please share that, look at it. If it blesses you, if you enjoy it, please let that fly. And it's going to be featured on actually TED.com, which is dope. TEDx San Diego was one of the first TEDx's. They gave us the initiative to put out content. Like, how can we do, since we're not going to do TED anymore, TEDx for this season, pretty much, how can we do this virtually? How can we put talks out? And ours was one of the first ones out there, and they really enjoy it. So that, and just the Play at Home, the national initiative with the local theaters. Just search Play at Home, and you'll see my 10-minute play, which is fun, about Baby Bear getting on trial for killing Goldilocks for intruding on the family. So it's a fun thing. It's like a courtroom drama. And I had a lot of fun writing it.
I love it. If you all have never seen Gil perform, please find him on social media, find him on his website. He's an incredible performer, always inspiring. And I'm really, trust me on this. This is somebody you want to search and find and watch perform. So thank you for being a part of this. I know that you actually need to cut out early. We're 5 minutes right before you had to cut out. So thank you for that. And I know that Beth Accomando also had to cut out early, but the rest of our speakers are still here. And our next, thank you. I'm going to mute you now, sir.
Sure.
So come on, mute. There you are. So our next speaker, we were having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think we figured it out, at least that she's able to join us via phone. So you might, I'm not sure what visual you can see here, but if you imagine this very elegant Mexican woman, her name is Roxana Velasquez. She is the Maruja Baldwin Executive Director at the San Diego Museum of Art. I'm going to just read her bio quickly and then welcome her to the fold. As a passionate advocate for the arts, Ms. Velasquez has focused on fostering cross-cultural dialogues with the San Diego community, as well as nationally and internationally. Throughout her professional career, she has organized many high-profile exhibitions in her capacity as the executive director of the Museo Nacional de San Carlos, Museo Nacional de Arte, the Museo del Palacio de Bellas Artes in Mexico City, and currently with the San Diego Museum of Art. She is one of the most outspoken and inspiring speakers that I know, and it's my very, very great pleasure to welcome Roxana Velasquez.
Hello, Susana. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you to all of you for being there. As you heard, unfortunately, I had a little trouble here with my systems, but here I am. And as always, delighted to share with you. I'm sorry I did not hear the past stories, and I'm sure they were very, very inspiring. And I'm looking forward to listening to them after we finish. But I would just like to start by saying that this season, this crisis that we are sharing has allowed me to learn so many things and to really delight myself with the strength of humankind. It is really inspiring to see how the San Diego Museum of Art team has responded. And it all started with the beginning, with the core. So, of course, as all of you here in this panel know, we are well aware that art is something that only humans can experience. And aesthetic pleasure or joy is something that we all share. All of us have been moved by, in some ways, by a painting or a sculpture, a film, a play, and we cannot deny that. Artists' lives are so attractive to all of us. There's something in those biographies that is alluring. And it is probably the fact that there is always a difficult component. There's a success against adversity, against all odds. Artists have surpassed this moment, and one wonders, where is this strength coming from? How is this capacity to overcome obstacles so clear inside the artist? And indeed, when one thinks, there's always a common element, which I see as the connection with the truth, one's truth, the veracity of our souls. There's something that makes this transpire. The creations are fabulous. The masterpieces are out there. And if you follow me and think of the greatest works of art, let's say in the painting world, you can think of the Picasso Guernica. And after that terrible bombing of the Basque town of Guernica in the north of Spain, this masterpiece comes from there. Or the Disasters of War by Goya, or the 3rd of May, or any of the terrifying images of the German expressionists like Mark or Münter or Munch. I mean, not to speak about tons and tons of musicians and writers like Stravinsky. I mean, the list is endless. Out of this major crisis, out of these shocking moments, is when the best of humankind appears. And our generation and many of the millennials, or all of us, I don't think we have ever experienced something like this. I'm sure we are facing the biggest crisis in our lives, probably the most significant one, and it has altered every structure from the daily operations, of course, the modus operandi, to the philosophical notions that we all had, and it has affected each one of us as a community, as a global community. So we have been exposed to so many aspects of humans, and the best and the worst also revealed in front of us these past weeks. And so I see this as a masterclass. We have been able to attend a masterclass on humankind, and I think we all should learn and contribute, of course, to it. And as the old saying states, we should never, never squander a crisis. So for us at the San Diego Museum of Art, it was very early March 14, when we decided that we had to shut down the museum. We had to protect the public, the biggest asset we have, the people, the staff. And I remember how baffled those expressions were of my team when I just said, you know, we are shutting down and we need immediately to take action. And the only thing I expressed to my team at the time was, just remember, why are we here and what is the core mission? Where can we get resilience? Our mission every single day. We are telling stories of triumph. We are telling stories that share how certain individuals were able to surpass this crisis in centuries, past centuries. So let's just, drink or go and take inspiration from our own collection. So as you know, the technical matters happened. There was a lot of things happening there. We were just about to close the Bouguereau exhibition, which was tremendously accepted by the visitors in San Diego. And we find out that the people, the 40 museums that had lent to us those paintings, many of them did not want to come and pick up the pieces. We have 40 oils by Bouguereau, this academic French painter right now in San Diego, and they just said, we are not going to pick this up. So from solving that, we still have the collection of Bouguereau in San Diego. It's in our museum. It belongs to another 40 museums, but it's here since then. We also had in front of us the biggest fundraiser, the one event that we have a year, once a year, Art Alive. We welcome, as you all know, the spring with this incredible festivity. It's really a community festival because we bring 15,000 people over 4 days in the museum, and the floral arrangements, which have been a tradition of San Diego. We're this year celebrating the 39th anniversary. We have created a French impressionist exhibition to accompany, and it goes on and on, programs. Everything had to be arranged and immediately put on hold, and of course, redistribute our talent. So speaking with the team again, what is amazing is the capacity that we as humans have to redirect, reinvent ourselves. And soon after this happened, everybody started sharing one thing: art is out there, needs to be accessible. And of course, we are all in the online platforms. Everybody has apps. We've been working in this for the last 5 years, but we really needed to make serious connections at this point. We just shut the physical doors, but we would never shut down the possibility of the community to be exposed to art. So all the teams started coming up with ideas, from sharing behind the scenes stories to even the Art Alive virtual, which launched 2 or 3 days ago. So everybody now will be able to see memories of Art Alive, for example, inspired by the St. Peter of El Greco. And or, for example, the Zurbarán St. Francis of Assisi. What has happened there? The community is voting, the community is responding in so amazing ways. And again, we are always open to listen what's working, what's not working, but of course to share and to share our deep belief that art is for that. Art exactly showcases these tragic moments of the past, but also reveals the best of us. It is amazing, again, to keep up the spirit of a team, the board members, the donors, and see how they are pouring this ongoing support, because we have to keep up. We know museums will open. We know we're getting back sooner or later, and there will be changes and shifts, of course, whatever we have to do to be more carefully, social distancing, but there is no way that museums or art will ever, be the same thing that we are there. So my biggest moment and inspiration of this, when this crisis started, and when I was following what was going on in Europe and Spain and Italy, and of course, all this New York side, what can we say about that? And how the museums were reacting, how they were shutting down, and all horrible stories that you have read. I just turned to my staff and I said, again, look into what we have here. This is our own collection, and seek the inspiration of all those artists that have surpassed this type of crisis and worse. And remember, art is long-standing and a place to always go, because it exactly reflects who we are. So again, we thought we should never squander this crisis, and we are there open for all of you and to help in any way we can. Thank you.
Wow. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. Just a couple of takeaways from that. We should never squander a crisis, right? I mean, let's think about that for a second, right? We are being given the privilege to be home, to not rush our lives and rush to work and rush to the meetings and rush to all of this, but to take a moment of silence and peace and experience this collectively. Number 2, we are being given a master class for humankind that reveals the best of us. I mean, just 2 takeaways from what you said. So beautiful, so eloquently said. Thank you. I want to follow up with one question and then one other component. The first one is, what organization, Sana, other than your own, is inspiring you the most right now?
So let me tell you that obviously the attitude that the Getty took, the Getty decided to give a very important, significant grant to support artists. And they gave, I don't want to misquote, but I believe it was $10 million to support artists and small art creators and workshops in the Los Angeles area. I mean, that was, of course, in itself, we know they do have that capacity, but it was so good that they did it at the beginning. But let me talk to you about one local one who really moved me when this started, and it is the Price Foundation, the Price Charities here in San Diego. The minute all this started, the 15th of March, I received a call, and they decided to support us in order to continue with the education programs. And they decided to send a check that we were not expecting the minute we were closing the museum. Just that small attitude, you know. I cannot tell you what does that mean? It's not the matter of money, it's the attitude of knowing that this is just a moment that will pass. And having that certainty and talking about that certainty, because again, that's the positive thing. The sad piece is in the other way around, all the people that have been laid off in museums in the East Coast, you know, for the moment. And one cannot believe this story, but of course, each one has their own story. But what we do have is the reminder again that we are more important now than ever. We should adapt, reduce things, but never, you know, not listen to the talent, the staff, the curators, that what could bring is these beautiful stories and this inspiration out of our own collections. You cannot imagine how the domino effect affected all the museums. We have more than 12 pieces of art traveling in Europe of our own collection, in Italy and in Germany. So countries that have been really affected. And it was so funny because we all touch base and say, okay, and try to support in at least in a conversation. You know, whatever you can give to the community, whether it is a big grant, if you're the Getty, or just a conversation of, remember, during World War I this happened, or during the 16th century when the Spanish flu came, or go to see Bruegel today. Get the tour of the San Diego Museum of Art virtual and learn what happened with the Spanish flu in the 16th century. And then you will see that, yes, it is very, we are navigating really on shattered territories for our generation, but this is not the first time. And humans are better. And if you do this walk with art on your side, I'm sure everything will be more easily walked through.
Thank you. And the last thing I'll just, you might have already said it, but I was giving you an opportunity for a shameless plug. So what do you want to plug your Art Alive event? What date? Where can we find you? Or is there something else you want us to pay attention to?
Yes.
Organization?
It's really the San Diego Museum of Art virtual. Enjoy yourself because we have every single day something for you. The Masterpieces podcast of Fridays, for example, is there, and you have 1 minute of a description of a painting by the curators of the museum. You have, of course, the Art Alive that comes Wednesdays, but you just have to go to our app and you will see everything, the lectures from the past, but it has a very structured way so you can enjoy every week of a new appearance. For example, the people are recreating our paintings, Susana. They are having a challenge and they are recreating oils with whatever you have at your house. Doesn't matter. What's the still life of today's world?
Go and see how we're posting. That was so funny.
Really. Yeah, you will see that, and it's so it is a full array of possibilities that I am offering you. Just go to the museum virtual, San Diego Museum of Art virtual, and I'm sure there's something that you will find of interest.
Great. So I'm going to unmute our featured speakers right now. We're going to open up. Oh, I'm sorry.
Remember, that's our museum.
Sorry, I think I cut you off. My apologies. So I am going to open this up for anyone who wants to submit a question for our speakers. We have still on the line, we have Sam Woodhouse, Shayla James, James Brown, and Roxana Velasquez. So if anybody has a question or a comment for any of those speakers, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute all of you here. And we can just have a very quick conversation. Where are you? Now, one of the things that I have taken away from all of this, I'm not a featured speaker, but I really love that we are starting to finally, not we, but humanity as a whole are starting to really appreciate the arts and its importance in our psyche, in our collective spirit. What is it that's getting us through this right now is the arts. There's no way we could survive this quarantine experience without film and theater and music and art and even culinary arts, right? I mean, all of this has been part of our collective experience, and we're so great. I feel very grateful for that all of these years talking about the importance of the arts, and yet here and you know, it continually being underfunded and all of that, and all of a sudden now here we are, and it really was very important for you, wasn't it? So all right. Oh, and Jonathon Glass is also here. So I just unmuted all of those speakers here. We have Jonathon, Shayla, it looks like Alessandra might also still be on, and Roxana. So does anyone have any comments, questions for our speakers? Muting you, Alessandra. Do any of the speakers have any questions or comments for each other?
Well, of course, I would like to say to the colleagues there that it would be great if we could just, you know, any idea that you have or that we could work together, just, you know, contact us, each one of us, because I know we are all looking for the same thing. And I think this is the moment to try to get some free time, because I don't know how are you doing, but I just don't stop working here. You know, it seems like everybody wants to be connected, but if we could come up with something that will be obviously memorable of this thing we're sharing, it would be, I mean, I'm absolutely open to that.
We are getting a few comments here. Somebody wants us to share a link to San Diego Business Crisis Support.org. That is for any of you who are small businesses. There's also another organization, the AMA, along with other communication industry orgs, is supporting a new crisis support site that may be useful for nonprofit organizations and businesses. So that's the San Diego Business and Nonprofit Crisis Support. San Diego Business Crisis Support.org, anybody interested. There is a question, what do you think live theater will look like transitioning back with some social distancing? I assume that's probably for Sam.
Yes, well, we're all talking about it all over the country. What would it mean if we were 6 feet apart? We actually plan to do a rehearsal of our Playhouse of Joy when it was possible to have 50 people gathering, and we figured out that we could put 50 people into our small theater. They could each be 8 feet apart. And by the time we got ready to make that happen, it was down to 10 people, so we couldn't do it anymore. But that's a major question that everyone's contemplating. In fact, this morning I just read about a study that is going to be conducted in Detroit, Boston, Norway, and Australia, asking audiences how they feel about when they come back, how they will feel about going to a theater or a concert hall or even a museum where they would be close to other people. How do they feel about that? When do they think they would want to do that? What would they need to be comfortable doing that? So a major research and consulting firm is beginning this study now, actually addressing that question, because it's a major question in our industry, is because our entire existence is built, the theater, around gathering people live in a room, sitting shoulder to shoulder close together. Yeah. So it's, in essence, is a central question about our livelihood.
One of the follow-up questions to that was whether it was TCG, the Theater Communications Group, that was conducting the survey.
It is not. It's a consulting firm with the last name Brown, B-R-O-W-N. I don't remember the full name of the firm.
Another question for you, Sam. What are you thinking of for next fall? Have you started that conversation?
Oh yes, we are going to be producing like crazy in the fall, knock on wood. There, I just knocked on wood. We have pushed activity that we expected to do in the next few months into the fall. We pushed Hershey Falder's piece, Paris Love Story, into the fall. right now we're looking at 4 productions and a festival between Labor Day and Christmas, which is going to be very, very active for us. So that's our current plan as we, like everyone else, wait to see when we can get together again.
Yeah. I have another shared site that, let's see, this is the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, BPCP, how COVID-19 is impacting intentions to visit cultural entities. So if you go to Colleen Dilen, DILEN.com, you can receive that information. Are there any questions for any of our other speakers? We still have on the line Alessandra Montezuma, Shayla James, Sam Woodhouse, Jim Brown, and Roxana Velasquez, looks like, and Jonathon Gless.
You know, if there aren't any, I just wanted to say something that I read about yesterday that I actually wrote about in our weekly newsletter, comes out on Thursday, is this concept that if you you watch a workshop, you take a workshop, or you watch a performance, or you watch Gil do a poem, or if you see something online, perhaps something from the Museum of Art that showcases the art from the museum, the writer was suggesting, consider making a donation to that organization so the artists who made that work can be compensated. We're flooding the internet with free art right now, but free art is made on the backbone of artists. So this is just a shout out for the concept that as the internet becomes a post office for art, let's consider supporting those people who are putting that art up online.
That's a great comment. I'm glad you said that. There's actually a question that sort of speaks to what you just said. Is there a concern, this question is for everyone, is there a concern for oversaturating the arts communities this fall? I feel like that's part of what you're, all the virtual content that's out there. Is that a concern to any of you?
I'll speak a little bit to that. I think I've seen a lot of content, but I was kind of reframing it as there was a lot of content to begin with in person. There's like 5 events in one night and you got to pick one to go to in person. And so I do think, I've heard concerns around like us looking at screens, like there's so many virtual workshops and seminars and taking that all in. But I think, with at our peak today, like about, 60, 70 people on this call, there's like these workshops are still wanted and needed and people are still seeking that connection. Yeah. So I think, sure, there's always a threat of oversaturation, but I think we were always there in certain ways to begin with. That's just my initial take on it.
Yeah, that's great. Alexandra.
Well, I think that, there's the idea of oversaturation. We each have things that we follow, people that we follow. So I feel like you can have a lot of content out there and people are going to choose what they want to see. And I agree with Sam Woodhouse about paying for the content that we're generating with our artists. We did pay our artists, even though the show closed, and we are paying the person who's producing our videos and everybody that's helping us putting things out. Of course, we're a college, meaning that I have a budget to pay people, but maybe at some point there could be, it's great for individuals to also contribute to all the nonprofits, and that's kind of a way to support each other. But I was mindful of that, and I did make sure that I was paying both the artists and the people who are producing the materials for us.
Thank you. Jonathon, you had something, comment there too as well?
Yeah, actually it's on both sides of that. On one hand, I hope we, like with other industries, we do take the time to monetize all of this effort around being online. However, we talk so much about the need for access,
Sure.
And perhaps this is a time when we're all becoming more comfortable, and in particular audiences or potential audiences, with participating, actually consuming in a way that perhaps we weren't comfortable with doing so in the past. So that's the good news. Especially I'm thinking about people that have problems with physical accessibility, and just the idea that so much more is available now, and we've made sure that our organizations and our individual artists have access to higher quality technology to make it available. So I'm really heartened around that. The other thing that I've thought about with all of this, though, is it also makes me want to be back in the audience and back in the museum all the more.
Yeah.
Online is great, but I really want to be back in the theater, and I really want to be back in the museum to see the pieces personally.
I so agree with you. I think this is sort of an exercise in gratitude, right? It's like something that you used to take for granted is now being taken away from you, and now you can only experience it in this way. So I expect that when we're ready, when it's safe, we are going to pack those houses and we are going to pack those museums because we want that personal experience again. I have another question here related to the Spanish-speaking communities. I'm sorry if I'm not able to get to all of your questions, everyone. The question is if there will be programs for Spanish-speaking communities in San Diego or other languages. Does anybody have any comments about that? It's okay if you don't. There's another question about jobs. As an emerging young museum professional, they'd love to ask someone who runs a gallery or works in a museum. I'm not sure what the question is. Will there be jobs for young aspiring museum professionals? What are your thoughts there? We might not have all the answers here today, by the way, and that's okay. I think all nonprofits right now are walking in, and all executive directors of nonprofits are walking into their board meetings without answers. I certainly did that this past week. And, my stomach was turning a little bit thinking, well, I'm supposed to have all the answers right now, but that's what your boards are for. That's what your communities are for. That's what, all of your engaged participants are for. Is it's okay to not have the answers right now and to reach out and ask for help and ask for collaboration. I think collaborations are so important right now, more than ever. If you have a resource that you can share with another so that they can survive. My motto has always been about a sharing of resources and collaboration. Instead of reinventing the wheel, partner with an institution, an organization that already has the means or the resource that you were looking for, and work together to continue building audiences of live theater and music and film and art and all of those things. Alessandra, it looks like you had an answer or a question. Or no, I missed it. Okay, so we probably have time for, go ahead. Did you?
Oh no, I think Alessandra was trying to say something maybe, but she's.
It looked like it. Oh, did I? I think you, there. Well, I'm trying to unmute you, but it's not letting me, so I think you have to do it on your own. Go ahead.
Okay, it did it. It was not letting me, but now it did. No, I was just saying that, yeah, I worry about this because I teach a museum studies class. So my students are looking into getting into this field, and some museum workers have been furloughed. But I also just spoke to my friend who's an educator at the LA County Museum of Art. And she told me that all of their education team is still on board generating content. So depending on the organization and where they are able to sustain it. If museums wouldn't have to rely so much on membership or the admission, not membership, but admissions per day, maybe they could still keep their staff because they would find a way, to fund. So I think that if it's your passion, you're going to have to maybe figure out a way to work with it. But yeah, but it it was a difficult conversation, to have with my students about this, because we were seeing a lot of articles of MoCA people being furloughed up in LA, and other people being laid off. So
yeah, I think that's probably all of the questions that we have time for today. Thank you.
Susanna?
Yes, Roxana.
Susanna, sorry, yes, I just wanted to tell you, but I was muted, that regarding the Spanish initiatives of other languages, we do have tours in 12 languages at the San Diego Museum of Art, and the app is bilingual. So if you go to the app, it is all in Spanish in your mobile. But also other tours are given in 12 languages, and the docents will be uploading these tours in different languages as well.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. I didn't know it was 12 languages. That's fantastic. So I do need to close out. I want to thank all of our speakers here today. I'm going to mute everyone here. You can give us a loud shout out, say thank you, everyone. I'm going to mute you all.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I want to do a quick, on a second here. Continue. Yes, I'm muting you. All right. So this is the end of our story circle. I hope that the experience has given you a better understanding of the region's powerhouse creative workforce and inspired you to support them. Please stay safe out there, stay inspired, never stop creating, and please support the arts. Remember that we all have our different belief systems, but in times of crisis, humanity does look to the arts to bring them peace and hope and inspiration. Right now, more than ever, creatives need your help. We know that these are strange and difficult times, but one thing we can probably all agree on is that we would not be able to survive this quarantine without the beauty of music and art, dance, film, theater, and culinary arts. And we don't know what the next few months will bring, but as an organization dedicated to advancing the creative industries, Vanguard Culture will be here for you along the way. And if any or all of these organizations inspired you today, please consider making a donation to help them stay afloat. You may visit our event page for more information about the organizations that were represented here today. You will receive an email with a recording of this story circle, in addition to more links with information on the organizations that they mentioned today. You may follow Vanguard Culture on social media at Vanguard Culture, at Culturally Savvy, or visit vanguardculture.org to be a part of our season. Thank you again all for participating, and be well.